living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.
Evening, folks. Monday night can only mean one thing. It's Let's Talk Formula One. Good evening, everybody, and here we joined with Matty. How are we doing, my friend?
I am good, mate. I am very well, thank you. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, doing well. Looking forward to the weekend. It's been a manic weekend, not only from testing perspective, but randomly in real life. Matty and I bumped into each other at the shops on the weekend just to freak everybody out. That was a bizarre moment for both of us, I think.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. I was just we had some friends over the weekend, so we obviously needed some beverages. I was walking through the car park and I thought, there's someone honking. I was like, there's no way that's for me. And then all of a sudden, this beautiful man appears behind me. So yeah, we had
or me.
Had a quick chat. Had a quick chat at Tesco. It was good times. Yeah, no, very, very unexpected. But I've had worse surprises in my life. So yeah, no, it's good.
Worse surprises at the Tesco's. Anyway, So this is what it's all about, Matty. It's been a long time coming.
It's
race week, or as we all know, as it's called, really, Rossi.
Rossi is back.
Rossi is back for the first race of the week, first race of the very long 2023 season. Really looking forward to the weekend. The timings are a bit fun and games because obviously Bahrain and time zones and whatever else. But first of all, let's go back to talk about testing. What were your big takes from the testing weekend at Bahrain?
I think there's been a couple of interesting things. I think I know we obviously had a brief chat about this when you had your random cameo in my life. Yeah, so I think the main thing that I'm really excited for is Aston Martin seem to have come out of absolutely nowhere, because obviously I know when Seb announced his retirement last year and all of a sudden it was announced that Fernando was going there, I think everyone was kind of like, why would Fernando do this to himself? This Aston Martin team is not performing. Why would Fernando go there? But clearly, my man knows something that we didn't.
Clearly, he's got the inside track on something, hasn't he?
Because damn, they are looking solid right now. Even Felipe Drugovich, obviously, he was taking part in the testing in Lance Stroll's absence. But yeah,
he may be racing this weekend if apparently as all signs seem to be indicating that Lance might not actually be ready. So
no, I supposedly keep hearing that he's full on potentially broken a wrist, which one would assume would probably keep him out of an F1 car for a little while.
It would make it tricky turning, I should imagine. So yeah, you're right. It's rumors though. There's not hard and fast comments, are there, about what he's done and what the injury is?
No, they're keeping it pretty tight-lipped. Yes, I do. Oh my god!
I won't show that message across the screen.
Do you know what?
Right.
He's one of the friends that came over on the weekend. I have a Kermit puppet. I do a worryingly good Kermit. I'm not gonna lie, mate. I don't know where he is right now. He went missing in the carnage of
the debauchery of alcohol.
So I'll find him out. I'll get him to call you.
You know that means that Kermit has to make an appearance at some point on the show.
Oh Jesus! What have I let myself in for?
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Shadow Productions 115.
Thank you, Michael. Much appreciated. Thank you.
So yeah, just as you were saying about Aston Martin coming out of nowhere, this is kind of I may well have borrowed this from Autosport. I'm not going to be
that's all right.
We didn't put that graphic together myself, but you can see that the nominal gains over the year's testing from last year's testing. It seems Williams have found a fair chunk of performance there. Granted, they had a big chunk to make up. So
yeah, the starting point wasn't fantastic. Yeah, I think they've made big gains. Obviously, Aston Martin have made marginally less. Mercedes is probably one of the big ones as well. Obviously, they seem to have massively dealt with their porpoising issue. That was obviously the big thing at their test last year. That was pretty huge. The fact that Red Bull have made up a second and a half or thereabouts is pretty scary.
It's pretty terrifying considering how far ahead they were last year. How quick that car was. The fact that they've made it even quicker.
That's quite terrifying. Moderately surprised by the Alpine though. I think that's equally as surprising as the Aston Martin for kind of the opposite reasons. Like they seem to have, like that car seems very twitchy. Like it seems a hard to control car. And considering how kind of pretty good and consistent they were last year, that seems like interesting that it's gone quite far the other way.
Especially considering, as you said, these were supposed to be just evolutions and tweaking and refining of things that were better. So you would normally expect some gains this season because they knew about the regulations, they knew about what the car was doing. It was just kind of tweaking and fixing it. And the fact that they seem to have lost time is an odd one. Have they gone too far with their manipulations? Slightly upset, slightly worried, slightly disappointed with the McLaren. Yes, they've gained, but they were, when you look at who's gained around them, they may be even further off the pace than they were last year.
That's, I think, the potential scary thing for McLaren this year. I think they haven't really made the gains they want to. I mean, supposedly by the time Baku comes around, the car's going to be very different from what they have right now. Like I'm hearing a lot of like this is like a
prototype kind of
and like there's going to be massive changes. But I think the worrying thing is, I guess last year, even when they weren't, because they obviously started last year off not fantastically as well, but there was quite a nice sort of gap for them to fall into, I guess. Whereas now, because Aston Martin have sort of made such gains, and it's like you said, the other teams around them have as well. Yeah, I'm kind of worried that the damage may be done in that first stint of the season. It might not kind of too late to recover. Obviously, the season's ridiculously long, but if you're starting that far on the back foot and then hoping that this upgrade package works,
and what's to say that everybody else isn't bringing an upgrade package that will add the same time that your upgrade is adding? If you've only gained, as you say, a second since last year, but Aston and all your competitors have doubled that.
Yeah,
that clear 4-5 challenge that McLaren and Alpine were in or battle, that seems to now be a challenge between at least 4, maybe 5.
I think the midfield this year is going to be tasty. Like I feel like the top 3 are probably pretty set, and then I think after that it's going to be chaos. It's going to be insane.
Just looking at it, as you say, Alpine were 4th last year by a couple of points over McLaren. That kind of got a bit tasty, that battle towards the end. Looking at where those cars have made gains, not an awful lot, but Aston are in there, Alpha are in there now, AlphaTauri, they've also made a fair jump forward. And Williams every now and Williams did score points last year, and they made a massive jump as well. So you're right. I think the top 3 are probably going to be clear like they were last time, because I don't think even with their financial budgets and all that sort of stuff, they're still going to be a 2-tiered sort of F1 grid, if you like. But that midfield, best of the rest battle is going to be, I think, where there's going to be some tasty maneuvers. There's really going to be some good wheel-to-wheel racing going on all the way down, I think.
Big time. I think it's, like I said, anywhere from 4th down, I think is going to be absolutely crazy. I tell you who I am worried for, though, and I say this because they looked okay in testing. Like, didn't really show off too much. Obviously, from the graphic, we can see they've made up a bit of time. But obviously, we've had that kind of developing news about Red Bull's very differing approach now to AlphaTauri. Obviously, that's kind of come out that obviously AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso, whatever you kind of knew them as, used to be like a pathway to that Red Bull team. Right?
Junior, it was always the junior Red Bull or the whatever it was, sister team, whatever it was always called. But it was always bought. Dieter Mateschitz wanted 2 teams. He wanted a stepping stone into F1 for junior drivers to come through, and that was what Scuderia, Toro Rosso, whatever it's been, the different namings that it's gone through. AlphaTauri is obviously now the fashion arm of Red Bull, and so that's why they're plastered with AlphaTauri. But the stories and the rumors coming out about, do Red Bull bring it under their wing, under the Red Bull campus? That seems a
And
little...
it sounds like they either want to do that, or the team is getting sold. And I think AlphaTauri is a good organization. I think they do really well, considering not like lack of investment. Like obviously Red Bull put a lot into them, but considering, I guess it's a bit of a weird one for AlphaTauri, right? Like, because obviously they get investment, it's all looking good, but they are never going to be allowed to compete on that same level that Red Bull are. There's always going to be, like, we'll invest in you like to a point, right? And I think now this is going to be like a big unsettling sort of thing for them. And I also kind of worry for the drivers as well, like Nick De Vries, fresh into F1.
Finally getting his chance.
Yeah, and like what a team dynamic to walk into. That's unfortunate. I think Yuki Tsunoda probably needs quite a supportive environment, and if they're worried about the future of the team, period, is that going to be good for him? I mean, I guess in an ideal world, maybe just step in Andretti, happy days. But it's probably not that simple.
Right? It's probably not that simple to just come in and buy lock, stock, and barrel a team based out of Italy. I think one of the things with the Minardi, as it was when Red Bull bought it, was it had to stay in its Italian base.
Sure.
So, I don't see Andretti GP coming in and buying that because, I think they want to be a US-based team. And therefore,
yeah.
But Ford, Audi, there are other names being touted for the 2026. There's a ready-made team with a good bunch of engineers and a great, race setup.
Exactly.
Could be worse ways of getting into the sport.
Exactly. Just getting your foot in the door. Kind of worry about maybe the other things like relocating the team and stuff. Worry about that stuff later. If this is, because obviously we've seen the teams are like voting against making it easier to other teams to buy in and stuff. So like, if this is your way in, maybe worry about the finer details later. Like if this is the way in, get it done. Yeah.
And, AlphaTauri are a point-scoring team, so it comes with history. It comes with benefits. You're not starting from scratch like we've seen with Haas, or we've seen with some of those when they try to introduce 2 or 3 teams at the beginning of, I remember that 5 or 6 years ago when we had the Lotus and we had the, was it an HRT or something?
I believe you're correct.
Yeah. So, those teams didn't last very long at all. I think maybe the Haas is the only one that's kind of managed to stick it out, but then Haas was somebody else before this, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I mean,
beyond me now, I can't remember.
Haas have had some tough times, so they've done well to stick it out as long as they have. Because
they really have. Most people would have pulled the plug, but Audi, any of those sort of big manufacturers who are thinking of getting their way back in, or maybe Honda, because the Red Bull Honda thing is going away. I can't quite work out what they're doing.
Yeah, because I know that they've kind of joined the Red Bull powertrains, but then supposedly McLaren are talking to them about a return, which is like, what?
After what happened, surely they wouldn't go back to that.
Yeah, of all the partnerships, that was not ideal.
I mean, that was the one that broke the original McLaren Honda. Fine, you can understand why they went back, but after it being so acrimonious and being so public, I mean, it was just we all remember Fernando Alonso saying what he thought of the engine in the back of his car.
Those pretty iconic radio messages,
Yes, would Honda, a Japanese firm who pride themselves on that Japanese culture and whatever else, would they want to go back to McLaren because of that? I don't know.
I guess it's also like their return with Red Bull went so damn well. Like, obviously it ended with Max Verstappen literally winning the title before obviously what part of Honda they had became part of Red Bull. Would you potentially try that again? And then what if it, like you said, what if it goes the complete other way? What if it goes, do you really want to potentially tarnish that legacy of what a massive impact they had on that sort of title fight with helping Red Bull build such a phenomenal car? Like it's a lot more complicated, I think, than just bring them on board. It'll be fine. Like, there's a lot to it.
Just slap our name on the side of it. But, the thing with the AlphaTauri, if it is such a sister team to Red Bull and there are similarities in the technology, and it would be crazy to think there isn't, then packaging their car for a Honda engine probably isn't as difficult or out of the realms of possibility than a team changing engine suppliers and different sort of configurations. I think that was one of the things in the McLaren when they changed from Honda back to Mercedes, that they had to repackage a whole back of their car because the engine configuration was different. So AlphaTauri sitting there, Honda. We don't want to lose Honda as a powertrain and a unit and as a manufacturer. Why would you not? I'm sure there's a decent bid and a decent offer that would be accepted if you came and kept the sport alive.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I believe one of the rumors that's also going around is it HRT that potentially looking to buy into it. Obviously, they have an F2 team and an F3 team already. So if they had that F1 team, that could potentially be very good for the sport kind of as a whole in terms of bringing young talent through. Because obviously we do know, love them or hate them, polarizing characters. But if there's one thing that Red Bull are good at, it is bringing young talent into the sport.
Whether they 60% of the grid is
it's nuts.
Red Bull young driver.
The amount of drivers that have something to do with Red Bull is crazy. So I think if they're going to get replaced by anyone, then maybe that's a good way to go, because I guess then at least there is a clear pathway to F1, right? Because I know it's obviously with drivers like Drugovich and Piastri, it almost seems kind of criminal that they would win F2 and then there is just nowhere for them to go. Like it's kind of nuts because they can't compete.
They can only move. They can only go in. They can't go back to F2 because they've already proven they're better than that. But unless somebody retires, there's nowhere to step into. And that was, as you say, one of the great things that Red Bull did is bringing so many young drivers through, gave them their chance in F1. And there's loads of them on the grid now. But yeah, HRT. I know they tried it. As I say, we tried it before when it was brand new regulations, and they literally brought from scratch a brand new car to the grid. And yes, they were 6 seconds slower than everybody else, but that's hardly surprising because it wasn't exactly like it wasn't a fair, it wasn't very fair, was it? I don't think the engine change, there was no engine regulation changes or anything, so they were literally 3 or 4 years behind the development of anything. So yeah, I can understand that it didn't go well then, but this could be a good opportunity to bring that in and keep that development pathway for F2 champions or whatever else to come through and continue driving at the pinnacle of the sport.
Yeah, because I mean it does feel criminal, doesn't it? Like I guess in football terms, it'd be like a team winning the championship and then just being like, well, there's no room in the Premier League for you, so what are you gonna do? Like it does seem like baffling, and I guess that's kind of the issue is when F1 is such an exclusive sport, because when you think about it, right, there's only 20 drivers in F1. That is it. There are only so many places at the table, and sure, you can get a reserve driver seat, but what realistically are the chances of you having a major involvement in the team? I guess you're going to be doing like simulator work and stuff like that, but that's not what you're going to want to do, right?
Yeah. Maybe an odd FP1 in the middle of the night when nobody's watching it, just to shake down some parts or whatever else. Yeah, that's about all you're going to get, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's going from winning F2 to being like, okay, well, you've got like one Saturday a year. That's not okay. But
it's not what they've battled through the carts and through all the different lower levels to get to, is it? To win that F2 championship and go, right, that's it. My next step is
not a whole lot, yeah.
Not a lot, or a DTM maybe, or they often fall into e-racing, that new sort of the e Grand Prix, and they go there. So a few of them have gone that way because at least they can get a seat, at least they can continue racing, or there's the DTM. But you do feel sorry that it is so exclusive. It is such a closed environment for young drivers to get into without that big checkbook, and which loops us back nicely to Aston Martin, and is currently the injured driver, is his seat at risk if he has broken his wrist, and maybe a driver like Drugovich comes in and actually, I wouldn't say outperforms, but kind of gets close to Fernando and scores points. What's that going to do for the team dynamics?
I think the Aston Martin one's an interesting one because obviously team is owned by Lawrence Stroll. I'm sure Lawrence Stroll loves his son. Obviously he does, right? But when does there come a point? Because obviously Seb outperformed Lance last year. If when Lance comes back, if Fernando just absolutely bullies him and say Aston Martin finished like 4th in the constructors, but like 75% of their points have been scored by Fernando Alonso. At what point? Because obviously, Lawrence Stroll, very successful businessman. He knows what he's doing in big, high stakes industries. At what point would he have to sit there and say, maybe my son is not doing the business? Because Fernando
maybe
Alonso,
we could have been.
He's
we could have
brutal.
been third. Yeah, we
Yeah.
could have been third if Lance scored just 15, 20, 25 more points. At which point does Daddy go, okay, business head has to come through.
Exactly. Yeah.
I need a better driver. You're great. I love you, my son. But this guy who's just won F2, who's chomping at the bit, he deserves a drive. We got to give him a go. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that dynamic because I think obviously Fernando Alonso, he's got nothing left to prove. So not that he's ever been afraid to speak his mind anyway, but at this point, really, what does he care? Like everyone knows what he's about. He's been there, done it. If you're going to want anyone's feedback, it's going to be someone like
if you're going to get anybody's feedback, you're going to get honest feedback from Fernando, aren't you? He's not going to sugarcoat anything.
Absolutely not. And I think not that again, I have nothing against Lance Stroll. I think he does pull out moments of genius, like that. Was it 2020 or 2021, the Turkish Grand Prix in the wet, where he pulled off that qualifying performance. That Racing Point was nowhere near the fastest car that week.
Didn't deserve to be anywhere near the grid, that car. Really.
And out of nowhere got that pole position with it because he does have those moments of sheer brilliance, but I just feel like they're cancelled out by 6 or 7 really idiotic or just non-memorable performances. So,
and I think it's the consistency, isn't it? You can have those good races or great races, but then a lot of the time you're like, oh, he's in 14th.
Yeah, he's just kind of there, and like you don't really notice him. Yeah, exactly. So, I think this is going to be a big season for Aston Martin in either really good ways or really bad. Because I mean, Alonso did bits in qualifying, and Drugovich looked pretty competent, but was that just Alonso doing Alonso things? Yeah, like
was it a lot?
I think it's going to be very interesting come the start. I'm excited to see where Aston Martin are. They're going to be a weird.
I'm really looking forward to the inter-team battle at Haas, though, because those two drivers at Haas do not like each other.
No, they have history.
They have history of being, shall we say, somewhat testy. So
I think that sums it up pretty well. Yeah, I think it's either going to be one of those dynamics that works really well, or second race of the season team's falling apart. Like it's
either an implosion just waiting to happen, and all it's going to take is an over-aggressive move by one of them, or a slight, running off a little bit wide or whatever else. There's something. It almost like it's a touch paper moment, isn't it?
Because this
and
is
maybe, as you say, it's going to be like they're going to be on 10. It's going to be so 10 hooks in that whole team. It drives them forward and really pushes both drivers.
Yeah, it's either going to work really well or it's going to be like somewhere like Saudi Arabia.
It's going to be perfect for Drive to Survive next season.
Oh, it's going to be so good for the yearly Haas episode that comes out. Yeah, they're either going to spur each other on and it's going to be a really good thing, or Saudi Arabia, turn 1, the two Haas are going to end up fighting, both in the wall, massive punch.
Drivers are going to be punching up.
Yeah, going to get rowdy. So yeah, I'm excited. I think that's going to be. And look, as I love Gunter Steiner, he is box office, but he's also not potentially known for keeping his cool in big moments as well. So I think the three of them, that is just. It's going to be pure Hollywood drama. It's going to be wicked.
And yeah, it's leading nicely from there. The Drive to Survive has dropped February 25th. It is Hollywood. It is drama. I think we talked about it. The Toto Wolff line.
Toto Wolff summed it up well. Yeah,
beautiful line. If you haven't seen it, you need to go and watch episode. I think it was episode 1 or 2 when he dropped.
It was pretty early on. Yeah,
it was basically, this is not a documentary. This is more like Top Gun now. But it's the perfect line Formula One fans like Matty and myself, we enjoy Drive to Survive for the drama and the excitement and the entertainment value that it brings, but it does not really cover F1 in the best of lights, or in the truest sense of the word, I think is the safest thing. But it does its job. It gets everyone excited. It gets everyone ready for the season. And it brings in a new audience. But the downside of that new audience is they're expecting this all guns blazing Top Gun drama.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that you kind of, I guess, realize the more you get into F1. Like, because I won't lie, Drive to Survive was one of the things that really got me into it. So, like, my kind of whole F1 story, I guess, whatever. It was like during one of the lockdowns, and I was really bored, and I just watched this streamer that I normally watch play something else. He was playing the F1 game, and I was like, that looks kind of fun. So I bought the game, and I was like, that's kind of fun. And then I think my first ever Grand Prix was like the 2020 Hungarian Grand Prix, which if you've ever watched a Hungarian Grand Prix, it's quite a fun track, but it's never normally the best endorsement for F1. They do tend to be a little bit boring at Hungary, but I clearly enjoyed it enough to come back. And then I watched Drive to Survive, and yeah, you kind of have this big expectation of, oh my God, it's just all out drama. And it's not. Like, it's pretty high stakes, and there'll be some dramatic moments during the race, but I feel like the more you get into it, the more you start to enjoy the weirder things. Like, I remember one of the races, I think it was like Portimao, and it was so interesting because there was hardly any overtakes on track, but the different strategies were so wildly different that it was so cool watching this whole hour and 45 basically game of chess just slowly playing out in front of you. And it's so interesting. And I think it's one of those things, if you are not into it, that is fine. But I think if you get it, and I feel like it's just one of those things, it just clicked with me. I was like, this is so cool. Like, it's such a slow burning thing, but like, I love it. Like, it's wicked.
I love those. Yeah, the Portimao and things like that. Malaysia was always one of the races that used to enjoy. It used to take ages, and it was like, oh yeah, he's miles ahead. But you would suddenly see, like, everything would start to. It's like a ratchet would crank up, and you got 30 laps to go, and suddenly you realize, oh, hang on, he's still got 2 stops to do. And it's as that last 10 laps, and you suddenly realize that everything, that chess match, as you say, is coming together because people are on completely random tires and whatever else. And back then it was fuel loads as well, so you were like completely didn't know what was going on. It's just insane when it all comes together and you suddenly got that 10 lap sort of mad dash to the finish. It's those nuanced bits that you pick up, and Drive to Survive doesn't obviously show you that because it's all razzmatazz splash.
It needs to show the big headliney bits and stuff, right? Yeah. And like, of course it does. Like, that's what it is. I think, like, because I moan about it every year, but I enjoy watching it because it gets me hyped up, because it makes you re-go over the, oh yeah, that was pretty exciting. Like, that was pretty wild. But you do have to, I think you have to take it for what it is. Like, totally,
it's a Netflix entertainment show.
Exactly. It does cover the season, but there is a very solid sprinkling of Hollywood in there. Like, so it's a really good and well-made show. And so far from what I've seen of this series, I'm really enjoying this series more than I have some previous series. I think they've made this one really well. Like, they've covered the whole Mazepin situation well. I'm just up to the bit where they're covering what happened with Oscar Piastri. They've actually covered these things quite well. But you do have to take it for what it is. Like, some, things like race radios or some reports and stuff, they will be used out of place for dramatic effect. So just bear that in mind. It's not, because I always remember, I think is like the first series or something, when Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen had that crash in Baku. Yes. And the show makes it out like they absolutely hate each other. And at first I was like, my God, they must be like arch enemies. And then I actually started watching F1 and I was like, actually, they're in the paddock together all the time. They are like best friends. Like, they love each other. And, it's just take it with a wee pinch of salt. Just a little bit.
Yeah, but as you say, it's sprinkled with Hollywood magic, I think is the safest way to put it. But yeah, I mean, it does the job. It gets new fans engaged. It's brought a whole new spectrum of people, and it's opened F1 to the, certainly to the US market. And otherwise, without it, we wouldn't have 3 races in the US this season, I don't think.
And I think it's made it a lot more, like, accessible, because I think maybe like in the UK, Sky Sports isn't necessarily a thing that everyone has. I know there's obviously like Channel 4 coverage, but that's normally kind of way after the fact, right? That's not like a live thing.
They don't have the every live race. They have some live races, but they have highlights and whatever else. And with the social media world and being instant access to everything, it's difficult to wait for the Channel 4 coverage to come online without knowing what's already happened. So yeah, there is that.
Yeah, and I think like, not every household has stuff like Sky, BT Sport, whatever. Pretty much every household has Netflix. Like most people do. And I think that makes it so much more accessible to a lot of people. Because that, again, I watched Drive to Survive and then I was like, God, I've got to pikey my brother's Sky account here so I can start watching these races. Like, this is wicked. So I think making it accessible is good, because I probably would never have got into it. I'd probably played the game and thought, cool, that's about as far as I can go. And then actually watching that more behind the scenes look really made me want to like chase it and think, God, that's sick. I love it. It's
and you ended up at Silverstone last year watching a live race.
I did. That was pretty wild. Would love to go again. But they bumped the prices up, those little buggers. So I don't think we'll end up going this year, but I would love to go back. It's an amazing experience. Have you ever gone to watch like a Grand Prix or anything like
that? I volunteer at Silverstone as a race maker.
Do you?
Yeah.
My man.
I have been race making at Silverstone now for about 5-6 years.
Nice.
So I cover this year. I do have tickets to go as a paying punter. Got in early. It's one of those, I give myself like, I've volunteered for 5 years. I deserve to go and watch.
I think that's valid. Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But yeah, no, as a race maker perspective, it's a weekend of just full on mayhem. So many people come to watch the F1 at Silverstone. It is some event. So yeah, I've been blessed, if you like, of having the some of the best seats in the house.
Yeah,
watching F1 for that.
Yeah, no, I think that was one of the things that really struck me about it, was I think just the pure scale of it. Like obviously, Silverstone's a big place, but I think when you're actually there and you're in amongst all that action and there's just the crowds, and it is genuinely insane. And like, if anyone hasn't gone to watch a Grand Prix weekend or anything, even if it's just like a Friday or a Saturday, if you can't afford the whole thing, because it is expensive. I'm fully aware. Like, I don't want to sound really privileged and be like, just go. Like, obviously, it's not that simple. But if you have the chance to experience anything, even if it's just a Friday, because I even thought the practice sessions were really cool. I also enjoyed like the other series, like, because I don't really watch too much F2, F3. That was wicked. Like the Porsche Cup was really cool to watch. That was really fun. But if you can experience it, definitely do, because I was kind of worried that if you go watch a game of football and you don't buy a good seat, you can still see the whole pitch. And I was like, what if you can only see one corner? Is that even fun? But I think it's like anything, the atmosphere of being there, it's just, it charges up the whole experience, right? You feed off everyone else that's there, and it's like, oh my, if you can experience anything, even if it is a Friday, do it. The experience.
And as you say, that what people don't realize, they think, oh, it's an expensive ticket for, just essentially 2 practice sessions, a qualifying and a race. It's so much that gets put on at Silverstone.
God, there's so much more than that. Yeah, there's always
so many other races. The racetrack barely stops having cars on it all weekend. So as you say, and yes, you can go there and go, well, I'm stuck out here. What am I going to see on this corner? Is there going to be that much action? But as you say, there's actioning happening all the way around, because the sound follows round.
Yeah, and there's the big screens, so you can kind of see what's happening elsewhere anyway. So like, you don't miss out on anything. You just get to see a really cool view of one bit, and then you still get the whole rest of it anyway. So yeah, I would implore anyone to do it. It's genuinely incredible. And I mean, even if there's not a race or anything, they normally just chuck out some classic F1 cars zooming around. Yeah. Like,
every now and again, just like, I think last year, this year, didn't they have Nigel Mansell's? Seb had just bought Nigel Mansell's championship winning Williams.
And and Aston Martin weren't happy about it, but Seb took it out himself, which was really cool. Yeah. They had one of the really shiny McLarens. I can't remember what year it's from. But they had that, and hearing that tear around the track, like, you think the F1 cars now are loud. But what kind of once they've gone past, you don't really hear them. You obviously got the crowd noise and stuff. You could hear that McLaren from the other side of the track. You could hear that screaming round, and there's just something about it, like the smell of the burning rubber. Oh my god, mate, I'm just sad I'm not going now. It really does bother me. But I'm buzzing for you, my friend. Are you going for the whole weekend?
Yeah.
Oh my man, yes.
Yeah, it was and as you say, it's not certainly something you do on a yearly basis because it does.
You'd struggle to do it every year.
It's nuts,
yeah.
But it is one of those ones. If you're going to do it, you put aside a certain amount and you do. You do the weekend and whatever else. So yeah, I'm blessed this year to be going as a punter. But as I say, I'm out there every year. I'm up with the MotoGP. I do the super bikes, British touring cars. I'm up there for the race makers. So if anybody else is interested, racemakers at silverstone.co.uk, give them a buzz. I think we're full for this year, but we're always looking for volunteers. Come along, be a racemaker, make the British Grand Prix for everybody.
Very nice. Good plug. Yeah, good opportunity. I think if you've got a chance to do it, do it.
Love motorsport and you love volunteering. We've got a whole new branch coming and a whole new sort of generation of volunteers that come through because I think a lot of the unis are kind of saying you need to kind of do some, volunteering. You need to kind of do some stuff as you go through some, motorsport.
It will reflect good on you. Yeah, it's never a bad thing to say you've done volunteering.
So why not go and combine your motorsport love and some volunteering? There you go.
Exactly. Volunteer for something you love. Not there's anything wrong with any volunteering, but if you're going to do it, that's a cool opportunity to do it.
It's a pretty cool one. It is a pretty cool one. Anyhow, sorry, went completely off track. So, are we going to are you going to go for predictions for this weekend, or after the? It's a toughie after that testing weekend where it's like, well, some things didn't look right.
Testing is so weird. I think until you have like the first qualifying session, you can't really take anything for. I feel like once qualifying hits, obviously teams can't hide anything. They have to go all out. Yep. So I think until that first quali session, it's any man's guess. But I mean, why not? Should we just like predict maybe like the podium for this week?
Let's go for it then, because I think hey, my man G's just jumped into the chats. How you doing, boy? Italy Jet.
Hey,
we'll be catching up soon this week. Bringing back the football show to Let's Talk Sport now that our boy is back. Podium, who are you going for? I think we're going to probably expect a car of the Red Bull.
It's very hard.
Stable. It's very. I mean, they were head and shoulders above last year. They've gained a bit of time. It would be tough to look past Max starting off on a high note.
I'm going to say Charles Leclerc third, Carlos second, Max win.
Oh, interesting. You're putting Carlos over Charles early on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
However, obviously for the last, 4-5 seasons now, whoever wins the first Grand Prix does not go on to win the championship. Obviously,
exactly.
Charles won it first last year. It's been like Bottas for the last couple of years before that. So, yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see. But I mean, it's hard to look past Red Bull, I think, at the moment. They're just scary. Yeah, let's go for it. Max win, Carlos second, Charles third. Let's go for that.
Interesting. I'm going to go Max for winning it. I think Checo's going to get second, and then I'm going to put. I can see reliability being an issue. First race of the season. I can see a bit of a left field podium coming in. I don't know who.
Nico.
No, not that left field. That's not left field. That's a different track. I almost want to see Fernando make us sit there on the third. I almost can see Fernando pull out. That car looks good. It's Fernando. He's got points to prove.
What a statement that would be for Aston Martin if they pulled out a podium in the first race.
There you go. There's my top three.
He's gone for it. He's gone for a Raul Fernando Alonso podium.
Max, Sergio, Fernando on the podium for Bahrain.
Just Fernando Alonso things, really, isn't it?
Just Fernando doing Fernando things, just overtaking 6 cars from the start as he does, and just
probably red flag
Ringing.
after like corner number 2, but Alonso's made up like 7 positions. It's just Alonso things.
How does he do that? He's like, he just teleports his car somehow. Yeah, he just does it. He just has that knack of just making places up, and early stages, reliability. Who knows which cars actually will get to the end? Maybe, just maybe, it's the start that Aston Martin are looking for.
Why not? Let's have some chaos. First race of the season. Let's do it. Let's just throw ourselves around in the deep end. Let's go.
Why not? And who knows? Haas might get 5th like they did last season. Oof.
Well, we could have a rowdy Kevin Magnussen performance. He clearly quite likes Bahrain. Just absolute full send. Why not?
Full send up the inside of Hulkenberg. What's the worst that could happen?
That will cause the red flag, actually. Hulkenberg, Magnussen, turn 1.
turn 2 or 3 or something. Just like completely, just like, no, I'm not letting
turn
you pass
1.
me. Even
Gunter smashes his door. It's going to be crazy.
Gunter smashes his mini pit wall to pieces. Yeah.
Haas F1 team have withdrawn from F1 this season after one race.
Due to irreconcilable differences between the drivers.
Just a very public divorce would be quite
sheer meltdown. We hope that doesn't happen to Haas, but hey, it would be dramatic. And
if it's going to happen to anyone, it would be Haas. Like, bless Gunter, he's had to deal with some stuff in his time as team principal. I don't know how he does it. He puts up with some nonsense.
Well, we know how he does it. It's in a little Fiat 500 with Matty and Gary, and they poodle around the vineyards of Italy. Beautiful.
To be fair, if I could do that on the weekend, I think I would deal with my problems a lot better. If I was like, what are you doing this weekend? Just driving through the mountains with Mattia Bonotto. Excellent.
Stopping off at vineyards and drinking wine.
Just eating grapes that I will never be able to afford. Perfect. That sounds
beautiful.
Good.
Beautiful. Why not? Matty, it's been a bit of breeze. Good luck. Enjoy the race this weekend, and we'll catch up next week.
Sounds like a plan to me, mate. You too.
Take it easy. Until then, this has been Let's Talk Sport.